I just recorded this entire podcast without my camera being on. I've been here like talking to the camera and doing all kinds of stuff, and decided that because this is Labor Day, it's May Day, I decided I would kind of like make this is a whole change for me. I'm going to do all 8 podcasts with audio and video. So I'm not even recording the audio. I got this microphone here and the thing's going, but it's not actually recording. I'm just recording on here. So I decided I'm going to real quickly do the whole podcast again, since I'm dressed up, I'm looking at the camera, and I want to know that everything's working. So today's theme is humans being salmon. And I went on and on about labor and the unions and smart people versus dumb people, and my being in the part, forced into the slave class my entire life, and prejudice and stuff against me. And so I'm going to make a short little podcast. How long was that last one? I can't even tell. It's in bars. It's bars and beats. That's why I can't tell how long it was. I have to change that counter to something else. But anyway, let's see, where was I? I was reading a poem. I think it was on page 40. Where is it? It was called Again. So anyway, the whole theme of today was salmon. People being human slaves, basically, being reproduced, not, being so dumb that they support the Republican people who actually don't give a damn about them and lie to them and cheat them and just get them all riled up so that they'll think that they're caring for them and protecting them when they're not. They're actually hurting them and limiting them and starving them and depriving them and preventing them from having better lives and better education, but they're too dumb to understand that. So unfortunately, that's 40 to 60% of our entire population is too dumb to see the truth, and they never will. You can force them to be smarter, but once you leave them on their own to be free, they're just going to be dumb. And I've had to really come to accept that. So that's why we have so many world problems, is unfortunately we got some really evil people manipulating all the dumb people. And that's why you got 10%, these evil people controlling 40% of the dumb people. So that makes 50%. And then you got the people who are C+, B-, B students, A-, and A students making up another 40%. And they've got, maybe 10% of the smart people and artistic people looking after them. So we got the 50% of these Democrats, which are basically artistic, compassionate, altruistic people, combating the evil, sadistic people who are controlling all the dumb people. And that's what we have. That's our world. That's America today. So anyway, let me read you this poem here, and so I can make the video podcast. And this poem is called Again. And I was all worried I bumped the microphone, but it doesn't matter. It's not recording. So anyway, this is a poem called Again. And it was written for when I was the philosopher poet, when the last couple years I was homeless, I became the philosopher poet from about, 2016 to 2019, about 3 years there. I was performing poetry all over the place. And one of the places I was performing was a coffee shop in Burbank called Priscilla's, I think. And James Levin was the host of this thing. I guess a kind of a predominant poet, but somebody who was able to at least establish a certain kind of niche and power zone by able to throw these monthly or bi-monthly poetry events. And there was a couple of people doing that, or actually about a dozen people doing that. And that's kind of cool. There's one way to rise up and have a little bit of fame and at least be respected by the poets. And then they were all kind of appreciative of you because you're providing them an opportunity to perform. And so anyway, James Levin was a really nice guy. And I stopped performing poetry just a few months before the pandemic. So even if I wouldn't have quit, I would have had to quit anyway. But I quit because I moved up here in October, and then of 2019, and then 2020 March is when the pandemic hit. Actually, I knew it was going to hit in December because I was watching China television at the time, and I saw what was happening in China. And I learned back in the 70s from an FBI mentor of mine. Yeah, an FBI guy. He'd been kind of kicked out of the FBI. But he told me all kinds of stuff and gave me, anyway, that's all. I think I've mentioned him before, but he was a little bit of a mentor for me for about a year. And anyway, he was one of the people who told me that all the flus every year, actually it wasn't him also, there was my physics professor at San Diego State, he was actually the one who was really predominant on that. He told me that every year the flu starts in China, and then, as he said, it comes over on the jet stream. So I spent a couple of months researching that, and there was just a little bit of evidence on the internet that says that, yeah, whatever happens in China does come over, and the viruses can survive the jet stream and then fall on California, when they get over here, or the Midwest. And so even if we eliminate all travel from China, that virus is still going to come over here on the jet stream. That's what that's what I learned. So he said that's why we had the CDC stationed in China prior to what's his name, Trump. We had a real CDC presence there, but when Trump came in, he was so stupid. He actually pulled the CDC out of China and did all kinds of really stupid stuff. I mean, really stupid stuff. And we could have been better prepared for the pandemic, and Obama had even warned about the pandemic, but Trump was too dumb to be able to understand any of that. He never did. I don't even think he still does. He's just a very dumb person. He's one of those C-D students. He just never is going to understand the truth. He can only see things the way he wants to see them, and that's it. That's just his limited intelligence. But anyway, how'd I get off on that? Anyway, I was just saying I knew the pandemic was coming. And so in December, I was warning people about the pandemic, even though Trump couldn't understand it for several months more. But I already knew it was coming in December. So anyway, so that's when I started warning people. But because I was scared, it seemed dramatic. People dying from it. A lot of people were just dying from this flu, a high percentage. So I was very concerned about it. So, okay, where were we? Anyway, I was saying I was the philosopher poet, but right before I retired as a philosopher poet, I was becoming Buddha Z, the Shaolin flutist. So instead of being Richard Del Conner, the philosopher poet, because I was always performing flute, remember I do a poem and a song on flute, solo flute, I became Buddha Z, the Shaolin flutist. But that's what I was just starting to do, and a lot of that poetry is going to be my first book of the 8. So I realized, well, I can teach the Four Noble Truths. And I started writing all these poems about the Four Noble Truths. And then I realized, well, I'm going to take all this poetry, and that's going to be my first book. So hopefully when you see this, the book will be done. Right now I haven't released it. I was supposed to release it last month on Buddha's birthday, April 8th, but I didn't. But all these poems are written. I just got to edit it, put it together, and package it, and publish it. Make a book cover and all that stuff. A lot of work, actually. It's going to take a few weeks of work. So anyway, just to package it, because it's all written. And then I was going to use the other books to basically then illuminate it. Then I'd teach the first noble truth. Then I'd teach the second noble truth. And then I'd teach the third. Then I'd teach the fourth. Then I'd teach about how to use them in your life. And then all the other things that he added. The 8 ways of thinking, or eightfold path. I like to think of it as 8 ways of thinking, which make it a better way so you can use the Four Noble Truths better. And then finally, the wrap-up book is how can you live a better life with the Four Noble Truths. So by the end of the 8th book, I'd like to think that the Four Noble Truths have been thoroughly presented, because I don't know one single American, not one, I've never met one single American who knows what the Four Noble Truths are. I could use it, not one. And most Buddhists don't even know. I mean, find a Buddhist and ask them to teach you what the Four Noble Truths are. And maybe they can recite them, and then ask them what they mean. And then how do you use them? And maybe we can both be surprised and impressed by them. But what are they doing about it? I mean, are they really helping anybody with them? Are they really helping themselves? So knowing it's one thing, but using it's a whole different thing. That's why I wrote that book, The Tao of Taoism. Was, okay, that Taoism's got all kinds of obviously very, very wise, philosophical, knowledgeable information. But how do you use it? Whose life is better off because it exists? So that's what the Tao of Taoism book is. It's taking it apart and then asking you all kinds of questions on how you can put that into your life, your particular life. Okay, so anyway, today is about being salmon. I was talking about the slave mind and the slave culture. Maybe I should re-record this again, but no, I'm not. I'll just make this quick for this one so I don't have duplicates. But yeah, this one and the audio podcast are completely different. I just bumped the camera with my foot. Okay, so here we go. Let me read the poem. Let's just get on with this real quickly. This was written for James Levin's Priscilla Poetry event in May 2019. And he had made a request to all the poets. He sent out an email saying, hey, I want you to write a poem about a childhood memory. So here it is. I got 4 pages. The name of the poem's Again. I took a shortcut off the sidewalk on to the grass, which became bare earth with gravel, then some ground granites. Should I cut through the canyon pass? Yeah, I hopped into the natural, the indigenous chaparral. Southern California, black sage, and lots of wild rosemary. That's why I don't season with rosemary at all. The sage I season with is different from what I'd wear. Sometimes my Levi's smelled like licorice, with sand in my underwear. Back to that walk off the side of the road. If I'd be a kid, again, I'd be hunting for a lizard or a toad. As I looked down at the California ground beneath my feet, I wanted to be there, be back where? I'd hike alone as a kid outside San Diego City. I was raised on the county limits. Canyons stretched to the horizon. S Mountain, with a white gravel S for San Diego State, was my adventurous limit through the canyons in a northerly direction. This was my chaparral, with all the creatures in it. I almost befriended the coyotes. They'd follow me on the other side of the creek. I collected salamanders, snakes, lizards, and toads. I was Indiana Jones after school, 5 days a week. Pages 3 and 4 now. I hung out after they closed at the San Diego Zoo. Some of my reptile freeloaders outgrew my menagerie. When my iguanas ate mom's chrysanthemums, they were through. My 7-foot green iguana was traded by the zoo for a Hamburg chimpanzee. He kept beating up the other iguanas behind the outdoor moat, they later told me. Yes, I was back there, right then. I was in identical surroundings, again. The coyotes reappeared in my mind. The smells invigorated those weaker memories left behind. It was wonderful, a cheap thrill, a kind of bliss. But like any memory, it's not as good as the actual kiss. So I wondered how hard it'd be to have a backyard naturally. Recreate the canyon with rosemary and sage. Do I just claim a chunk of canyon? If I import dirt and recreate it, is it an environment or a stage? Maybe I'll buy rural. I'll buy a farm with canyons on the land. It'll be my canyon backyard. I'll be walking back there again. I'll capture some lizards again. I might even hunt rabbits with my bow and arrows again. I'll walk the paths. Oh man, no ticks. I hope again. Enjoying the canyon enjoying the canyon interactions and the quail sailing again. Being alive, climbing rocks, build campfires again. Sleep in my sleeping bag under the sagebrush again. But does that mean I'll probably get bitten by a rattlesnake again? That's my poem again by, well, me, Buddha Z today. Also known as Richard O'Connor. Buddha Z, the Shaolin flutist. All right, so real quickly, I was supposed to explain so anyway, about that poem, Memories, good and bad. And I went to a big thing on the audio podcast. You might want to check it out. And I elaborated for about 15 minutes about memories and things like that. Good and bad, and how do you tune them out? What do you think about? What should you remember? And so anyway, the Four Noble Truths. Let me just review them real quick. Life sucks. Sucking ends. You can have an influence on the sucking ending. And 4, you can live a life of less suckage. Okay, that's my Buddha Z interpretation. What does that mean? Okay, so we'll take that rattlesnake. Okay, so life sucks. When I was a little kid, I stepped out my back door and there was coiled up. I didn't see him on the mat there. There was a rattlesnake. I stepped on him. Boom, he bit me. And it was a big one, huge rattlesnake. But my mom used to buy my pants too big so I could not outgrow them so quickly. So I had the cuffs rolled up. So that rattlesnake grabbed my cuff and he was there chewing on my cuff. If I would have been, weren't for that cuff, I definitely probably have been dead because he was really intent on just, not just a little bite. He bit it and he was chewing when I looked down. So anyway, so life sucks. It just can happen. And number 2, sucking ends. Well, maybe I would have lived, maybe I would have died. But would have ended. Number 3, you can have an effect on the suffering. So maybe we could have, bled it really quick before I got to the hospital. Maybe we could have got to the hospital. Or maybe I would have lost my leg, but, I would have still lived, and then the pain would have been over. And number 4, you can live a life of less suckage. Well, it was shortly after that my parents got a fence so that the rattlesnakes couldn't get into our backyard. So we were able to live a life with less possibility of the rattlesnakes ever getting into our backyard. And so that was the way we were able to, number 4, live a life with less suckage, less rattlesnakes. So once again, you can kind of like figure out how to, that's the 4 Noble Truths. So that's what you do in your life. You just use the 4 Noble Truths to understand reality. Okay, so where were we? The ad for the book, I haven't finished it yet. It's, it was supposed to be the first of the 8 books. By the time I'm done with my 8th book, you read all 8 books of my 4 Noble Truths, you will definitely understand the 4 Noble Truths and be able to have a better life accordingly. Be smarter. And in terms of my album, Buddha Z is supposed to have a record album. I remember I recorded it 6 years ago, 2005? 6 years ago. I've been waiting to finish this record. I got to put drums, bass, and that's about it. It's done, unless I want to get all fancy and put a bunch of other stuff on it. But it's just a rap album. And it was Buddha Z. It's my anti-rap album. That's what it's called. It's Buddha Z's anti-rap rap. So I'm doing my version of rap, which isn't very rapage, but it's me kind of being a rapper, and I'm bad talking other rappers. So it's an anti-rap rap album. What's the name of it? So anyway, I don't know what's. And then so I made these 4 hostile songs, and I tried to get somebody else to record them. I was hanging out with I was homeless, so I was around a lot of black people doing rap music, but I couldn't get any of them to record my rap music. And then finally, I wrote this one rap song called "The 4 Noble Truths." And I thought, oh, okay, well, I'll call the album "The 4 Noble Truths," and maybe that'll be better marketing. I'll be Buddha Z, the Buddhist rapper. So that's when I became Buddha Z, the Buddhist rapper, instead of just a anti-rapper. So, okay. But yeah, that album, Buddha Z, 4 Noble Truths album, that's hopefully going to get out someday. So what else do I have to say to you? Well, that's good enough for today. I was talking about unions and all kinds of stuff and dumb people versus smart people. So listen to the audio podcast of the 008. It's a lot different than this one. And the ending song I'm going to leave you with is the song "A Long Way Home," which was written in the late 90s when I was just really wanting to, actually the early 90s. I wanted to get out of Utah. And I didn't get out till 1999. Even after I wrote this song, it took me 5 years before I was able to escape Utah. But I was really unhappy there. And I realized that my future wasn't there. And the kind of people I wanted to hang around with weren't there. And the people who inspired me weren't there. And I was just kind of living amongst 70-some%, Mormon people who I ended up getting along with. But at the time I wrote this album, I wasn't getting along with them. When I wrote this song, I was having a lot of them were being mean to me and calling me a California Buddhist hippie, and they weren't really appreciative or respectful. So I wasn't real happy to be there at that time I wrote this song. So it was very lonely. Oh, I get out of Utah song. So here it is. This is a Long Way Home by American Zen from the first album. Level 1 equals peace of mind, which is all I really wanted to be at that point. I had my daughter and my wife's off working all day, and I'm trying to still find my music career. Ended up teaching Kung Fu just to make some money. And I was just kind of wanting to go home. Well. All right, Buddha Z here. See you later. Buddha Z explains. What did I explain? I explained something, I'm sure.
On the porch, soft cool touch of the night, evening bird.